In this video, I'm going to show you how I set up my clean channel on the Boss Katana MkII Artist. The demo you're hearing now is played using this exact setup, and I'll explain every part of it step by step. The Boss Katana is one of the most versatile amps on the market today. While it sounds great straight out of the box, its real potential is unlocked through the Boss Tone Studio software. In this video series, I won't cover every tonal option Katana offers. Instead, I'll walk you through how I personally set up my core presets after months of experimentation. Tone is subjective, and what works for me may not work for everyone, but maybe it'll give you a few ideas for your own setup. For this video, we'll focus specifically on the clean channel. I'm using a Gibson ES-335, and the sound examples were recorded with a Shure SM57 and an Audio-Technica AT2035. Let's start with the system settings. They're not the most exciting part, but they do shape the overall response of the amp, no matter how your individual channels are set up. Two things matter most here. The first is the global EQ. Good tube amps often handle mid-range frequencies really well. That's where the guitar lives and cuts through a mix, whether you're recording or playing live. So I gave the mids a slight push in the global EQ. That became the foundation for everything else I've built. After a lot of testing, I found that placing the EQ before the power amp, set to output, and using the green tone shape worked best for my sound. But don't take that as a rule. Experiment and see what fits your tone. The second key setting here is the line-out mode. I'm using the live option. It's the most natural choice if you're using the amp, like you would a traditional tube combo. All right, and let's move to the actual clean preset. My clean tone is based on a Fender Twin Reverb. That's the core sound I was aiming for. To get there, I started by downloading the so-called sneaky amp presets. I won't go into detail here, but they're essential if you want this kind of clean tone. You can find them on the Boss Tone Exchange and import them into Tone Studio like this. I'm using chain 3-1 that puts the boost and compressor at the front of the chain, then the amp section, and finally the ambient effects like delay and reverb. The amp type is set to clean, which gets automatically selected when you import the Twin Reverb Sneaky Amp. Gain is at 57, right at the edge of breakup. Volume is up at 82 to keep the headroom clean. Bass is slightly below noon. Mids and treble are a bit above. On a real Twin, this wouldn't be the case. But the Katana reacts differently. So, this works best here. Cabinet resonance is set to vintage, which gets me closest to how a Twin responds in a room. I've turned off tone shape, but I encourage you to test that setting for yourself. I'm not using a booster on the clean channel. The amp gain is more than enough. But I am using a compressor. And here's where things get interesting. This isn't the kind of compressor you'd use on a real Twin, like a Boss CS-3. Instead, the compressor here helps emulate the natural compression that tube amps give you. I keep it subtle, just enough to smooth out the dynamics without choking the tone. Let me show you how it sounds with and without compression. The Katana has a few reverb types to choose from, but I stayed true to the original, spring reverb. It's actually very convincing, especially compared to the real spring tanks on vintage Twins. The settings are gentle. They work well in a room or small studio. But keep in mind, depending on where you're playing, you may need to adjust the reverb level directly on the amp. This is probably the most important part of the setup, the EQ section. Mine is set to amp out, and I'm using the Parametric EQ. 3 parameters made the biggest difference for my tone. Low cut at 160 Hz, just enough to clean up excess low end. High mid gain at +5 decibels. Works great with my ES-335 and humbuckers. High cut at 4 kHz. This tames the harsh top end and helps create a smoother, jazzier tone, inspired by players like Larry Carlton. These settings are super sensitive. Small changes can have a big effect. I recommend adjusting them based on the guitar and pickups you're using. And that's basically it. My advice: start by loading the sneaky amps and adjusting the system settings. From there, tweak everything to fit your guitar and playing style. Tone is personal, but hopefully this walkthrough gives you a few ideas to work with. I've got 3 more videos coming up, covering my boost, drive, and lead channels. Thanks for watching, and if you found this helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next one.